California Congressman Robert Garcia, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, was just in that interview with Leon Black. He joins us now. Congressman, tell us what happened.
Look, at the end of the day, Leon Black is critical to this investigation. $150 million from Leon Black went to Jeffrey Epstein. There are survivors that we know have actually accused Mr. Black of really serious crimes. Won't answer questions with relating to these NDAs is huge. And for us, for this investigation, what the chairman is doing right now is important. These subpoenas will ensure that we get the NDAs, but also ensure that we actually get Leon Black in front of our committee under subpoena and under oath, so that he actually has to answer these questions. These interviews should all be under oath. And the fact right now that we're actually going to get Mr. Black under oath is really important. So we actually commend Chairman Comer's decision here. It's what Democrats have been asking for this entire time, is under oath depositions. And so right now we're actually waiting for Leon Black to make a decision whether he's going to continue, whether he's not. He's been meeting with his lawyers, but the attorneys have been doing a good job of asking tough questions he won't answer.
Okay, let's talk about those tough questions, especially since this conversation is still happening, playing out in real time. What are the questions you want to ask of Leon Black?
Look, we need to ask Leon Black where and why he gave Jeffrey Epstein $150 million and for what? Because at the end of the day, we do not know. We also now know that Leon Black is essentially ending this interview because he's being asked for information about these NDAs, about these women that were abused, that were targeted. And so there's a lot of information that he has. Look, we're just hearing right now that Mr. Black is probably going to walk out of this interview. He's no longer going to continue. But what he needs to understand is that we're going to continue to be able to answer these questions because he's going to have to come back to us under subpoena. And I think that's going to be really important.
I'm sorry, Congressman, did you have an opportunity to sidebar with Chairman Comer in advance of his decision, his announcement that he was going to issue these subpoenas?
We've been communicating with Mr. Comer the entire time, so I think he's doing the right thing here. But I think right now, I'm glad that Leon Black is going to come back under subpoena and answer our questions. And so,
one of the
I actually
women,
think he's going to be coming out here right now in a minute.
We'll keep our cameras trained on him. Oh.
Turn your mic on, Mike.
That is Leon Black walking towards our cameras. He is refusing to continue this interview. He has now been issued subpoena by the chair of the House Oversight Committee. We will check in with our own Michael Schnell on the other side to see if he was willing to answer questions of reporters. Congressman, I want to come back to you because one of the women who accused Epstein of abuse in the files also said he directed her to give massages to Black and to others. Black categorically denied abuse allegations in his testimony. He said he was not aware of any, quote, nefarious activity from Epstein until he was charged with trafficking in 2019. Still, he hired him after his 2008 conviction for solicitation of a minor for prostitution. Were you able to address any of this in the time you had with him?
Mr. Black won't answer questions. I think what you just saw right now is exactly why this investigation is so important. There are two men that provided most of the financial support to Jeffrey Epstein. One is Les Wexner, and the other, of course, is Leon Black. And the idea that Leon Black won't answer questions about these multiple NDAs, the fact that he won't answer questions about survivors and women that have made serious accusations, that is why he will now have to come in under oath. And I want to just say this is, I think, important for people to understand. A lot of these interviews are not conducted under oath. It's been a complaint from Democrats. We want these interviews under oath so they have to actually answer the questions and have to be truthful. And so I think for Chairman Comer to make the decision and to switch strategy and to actually ask Leon Black to actually be under oath and answer questions, I think is actually an important step. I'm glad that's finally happening, and that should be the case for every single interview. Only the majority, in this case Republicans in the House, have the ability to issue subpoenas unless there's a bipartisan vote. So this is
Look, Donald Trump was the only one around who was really wanting to walk it back or to slow it down, didn't want to hear about it, according to their reporting, got noticeably agitated whenever it was brought to him. So what was the Blanche role in this? Was it to release these files and do the bidding of the people who demanded it and of the law? Or was it to help the president?
Yeah, no, quite the opposite, Katie. I mean, to me, I read that account and I think it squares with what we've observed, which is that people like Blanche or other Trump appointees, Trump gets mad at them or they feel weak in their positions. And that was the case, I think, for both Todd Blanche and his now former boss, Pam Bondi. And what they do in response is they try to then offer even more demonstrations of fealty to Donald Trump. They escalate in some way. They do some over the top thing that Trump has previously demanded of them that they've resisted before. And I think that's the story here about Blanche that's interesting, is that he and Bondi tried to hold off demands to a certain extent that they say are inappropriate, whether it's on the Epstein files or other cases where Trump was demanding that they prosecute various of his political enemies. And when Trump then gets mad at them, what do? They don't hold their ground. They don't resign. They actually then buckle under, or they have another example of fealty. And that's what we've seen from Blanche, is that in order to get the job, it seems like he had to play this role of the acting and demonstrate to Donald Trump he could do something like find another way to get James Comey indicted, which is what seemed to be the tryout for the job in some ways for Todd Blanche, and a proof that he was willing to use the Justice Department for Donald Trump's ends. It seems to me that was the interview, that was the tryout, if you will. And I think that's, to me, what I'll be looking for in that confirmation hearing is whether any Republican senators are willing to call Blanche on that.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's talk a little bit more about the actual lawsuit here. Our friend Katie Fang brought this on the Epstein files in particular, and she was arguing that the DOJ was not abiding by its own law. Joyce Vance, Andrew, called it a novel theory, but one that is elegant. Explain it to me.
Well, I think the novel theory really had to do with a technical issue about standing. In other words, who can sue, because it's not the case that just any individual without sort of individual harm can bring a lawsuit because of the niceties of our law. But Katie came up with maybe, I don't know that it's so novel. I mean, she said that she is engaged in journalism and that's how she makes her livelihood. She is reporting on this, and these documents were supposed to be out, and she has been following the Epstein story. And so it is hurting her business and hurting the public as well. The court got over the technical issue, the stumbling block of who could sue. But on the merits, this is the sort of the new normal we're in. The person who is going to have a confirmation hearing in the middle of July has now been found by a federal judge to have violated the law. Violated the law. This is a federal judge who has said that he has repeatedly violated the law that required documents to be turned over to Congress under the Epstein Transparency Act. I should also say that in the Abrego Garcia, you have another federal judge who dismissed that case, a criminal case, after finding vindictive prosecution and very much laying the blame of that at the feet of Todd Blanche. In other words, this is one where the Senate has all the reason in the world to grill him and grill him appropriately, not to mention that this is the person who, under his watch and Pam Bondi's watch, tried to indict 6 members of Congress. You would think Congress might have an interest in not putting in place somebody who is going to try and bring a bogus lawsuit against 6 members of Congress. Remember, if it can happen with a Republican in the White House, it can happen with a Democrat in the White House. Do you want to set that precedent? This is sort of goose gander time.
There are documents that could be incriminating for the president, that we have a real problem not releasing these files, and then contemplating what they can do to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't lose his base. And, when Massey and I were doing this, we honestly didn't think it would have this kind of political ramifications. I mean, we understood the impact on survivors, but obviously they did, and they were in a panic mode, which neither Massey or I realized the extent of it.
One of the things that comes through in this reporting, again, this is not our reporting, this comes from Haberman and Swan at the Times. They have a book coming out that includes some of this, is that one of the things they're contemplating in those meetings is like how much, literally almost explicitly, how much should we cover up and how much should we disclose? Like the question on the table is, should we actually put this out? And one of the things that makes me think is, look, there are millions of documents that they are holding back, I think, through dubious legal arguments. And given the fact that we know that essentially from this reporting they were contemplating explicitly covering stuff up, it does make you really got to wonder about the stuff they're not disclosing.
Absolutely. And we know what hasn't been disclosed. How do we know? Because the survivors' lawyers have seen a lot of these files and they've told us. And what is not being disclosed is the survivors' statements to FBI agents naming other men, naming other people who were part of the Epstein files, Epstein abuse. And what also is not being named and disclosed is things concerning Donald Trump. And now we know that there was a concerted effort for months to deal with what needs to be hidden, what should be disclosed, how to trick the American public. And I'm really looking forward to this book coming out because I think it's going to expose everything to the American public.
On that point, CNN had a piece about Epstein file survivors pushing Comer to investigate potential leads from the DOJ's files in private meetings, and that in a private meeting last week, a group of survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse and family members of the late Virginia Giuffre pointed Comer to allegations from the Justice Department's Epstein files to further investigate. They brought documents from the released files to argue there are allegations against powerful men the Justice Department could pursue. Do you know anything about that?
Well, they know that there are, of course, people like Les Wexner, Leon Black, who have had enormous allegations. And these survivors are seeing these people not be investigated, not be prosecuted. Chris, there hasn't been a single investigation or prosecution of all the files that have been released.
A congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's associates is gaining momentum after House Oversight Committee members pushed for key witnesses to testify under oath. One of the main speakers is businessman Leon Black, who is facing renewed questions about his financial relationship with Epstein. Lawmakers say that they want clear answers about past payments and other records connected with the investigation. At the same time, the Justice Department is facing pressure over its handling of Epstein-related documents. Critics argue that more records should be released, while the DOJ maintains that some information is legally protected from public disclosure. The controversy has intensified after a federal court ordered additional transparency regarding certain withheld records, adding more pressure on the department to explain its decisions. Supporters of the investigation say greater transparency is essential to restoring public trust, while others caution that legal protections and privacy concerns must also be respected. While congressional subpoenas, ongoing court battles, and renewed public intention, the Epstein investigation is once again becoming a major political issue, and more developments are expected in the weeks ahead.